Erica Johnson clutched the handle of her suitcase as she stepped out of the taxi, her eyes lifting to take in the grandeur of the Moonlight Peaks Resort. The entrance sparkled with glass and polished brass, cascading under golden chandeliers that shimmered even from outside. This was her dream vacation, her first real break after years of hard work as an emergency nurse. The long shifts, nights on call, and endless compassion had taken a toll. But today, in this moment, she was here to recharge, to find a little slice of peace. Taking a deep breath, Erica stepped toward the revolving door, her heart swelling with anticipation. Her simple blue dress and flats didn't shout luxury, but she carried herself with a quiet confidence, assured in her hard-earned place here. Erica, however, couldn't ignore the way her heart thrummed with both excitement and nerves. After all, this was new territory, a world of wealth and polish, a stark contrast to her daily life of scrubs and sneakers. Inside, the lobby was a scene from a dream. Velvet armchairs and grand sculptures filled the vast space, and the air carried a subtle scent of jasmine. Just ahead, a smiling receptionist welcomed her with a polite nod. Erica's smile widened. It felt good to be here. "Welcome to Moonlight Peaks Resort, ma'am. May I assist you with your reservation?" "Yes, I have a reservation under Erica Johnson," she replied, her voice steady yet soft. Her gaze took in the high ceiling, her fingers tracing the soft, worn fabric of her suitcase. The receptionist tapped at the computer, and Erica's eyes wandered to her surroundings. She noted a well-dressed couple near the entryway, glancing her way with a bemused smile. Their expensive attire, down to the polished sheen of their shoes, suggested they belonged here, while Erica suddenly felt her practical travel clothes and modest luggage almost inadequate. She shook the thought away, remembering the countless hours and determination it took to book this trip. It didn't matter how she looked. She was here, and she deserved every bit of the luxury she'd worked so hard to afford. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" A voice sliced through her thoughts. Erica turned to see a tall, thin man in an impeccably tailored suit approaching. His name tag, shining under the bright lights, read Mr. Thompson, General Manager. "No, sir. Ms. Johnson is just checking in," the receptionist answered, glancing between them with a hint of discomfort. Mr. Thompson's gaze settled on Erica, moving from her face down to her suitcase, his brow furrowing slightly. "Ms. Johnson, you're aware that the Moonlight Peaks caters to a very specific clientele." His words were clipped, and his eyes held a steely glint. Erica's brows knitted in confusion. "Yes, I am," she replied, keeping her tone steady. "Our rooms and amenities," he continued, emphasizing each word, "are of the highest standard and may not align with everyone's budget." His mouth twisted slightly, as though he tasted something sour. A faint warmth crept up Erica's neck. The implication was clear, and she wasn't sure what surprised her more, the audacity of his comment or the fact that it was happening so openly. She took a steadying breath, drawing on the calm she'd mastered in countless high-stress shifts. "I appreciate the information, Mr. Thompson. I saved and planned carefully for this trip, and look forward to enjoying everything the resort has to offer," she responded, holding his gaze. Mr. Thompson blinked, clearly taken aback by her calm response, but he quickly masked his surprise with a tight smile. "Very well," he said, glancing briefly at the receptionist. "Ensure Ms. Johnson is given a comfortable room." He nodded curtly, then turned on his heel and strode away, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. As the receptionist handed over her room key, she lowered her voice, her face a mixture of apology and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Johnson. Please enjoy your stay, and let us know if you need anything." Erica nodded, her fingers tightening around the key. The excitement she'd felt earlier had dulled, replaced by a weight in her chest that she hadn't anticipated. But as she made her way toward the elevators, she whispered to herself, "This is my vacation. I earned this." The keycard led her to a room on a less opulent floor, and though it wasn't the suite she had envisioned, it was clean and inviting. She unpacked, organizing her clothes in the small closet and laying out her travel plans, all while replaying Mr. Thompson's sneer and his insinuations in her mind. By the time she finished, her determination had returned. She had chosen this place, planned this trip, and was here for peace. No one would ruin that for her. With a newfound resolve, Erica left her room and made her way to the resort's luxurious spa, her first planned indulgence. The fragrance of lavender and eucalyptus greeted her at the entrance, inviting her into the serene space. She approached the spa receptionist, who looked up and, after a brief second of appraisal, offered a stiff smile. "Good afternoon," Erica greeted, focusing on staying positive. "I'm here for a massage. I believe I have an appointment." The receptionist scanned the list, then nodded, gesturing toward a waiting area. Erica took a seat, breathing in the calm of the spa, letting the rich surroundings ground her. But she couldn't ignore the sidelong glances from a few other patrons, or the quiet, curious whispers that followed her. Instead of letting the stares upset her, she sat taller, focusing on the relaxation she'd come here for. As she waited, memories of her patients drifted through her mind. The scared young mother she'd comforted during a long labor, the elderly man she'd helped through countless treatments, the little girl who had once clutched her hand in fear. She had been there for them all, a steady presence in the storm. Here, she told herself, she was simply another person seeking peace. She had earned her place as much as anyone else in this resort. When her masseuse finally arrived, she relaxed into the experience, the knots in her shoulders slowly unraveling, her breathing slowing. For the first time since she had arrived, she felt a sense of calm settling over her, a reminder that this was her moment. Erica woke the next morning with the soft glow of dawn filtering through the curtains. She stretched, feeling the lingering calm from the spa treatment the previous evening. But she knew that today was a new day, and she intended to embrace every moment of it. Determined to make the most of her vacation, Erica selected a soft, flowing blouse and her favorite jeans, a comfortable yet put-together outfit that reflected her casual confidence. After a quick breakfast, she wandered down to the hotel's concierge desk to ask about local attractions. She had a full day planned, eager to explore the nearby museums, perhaps browse some shops, and indulge in the famous coffee at a nearby cafe. As she approached, she noticed Mr. Thompson's gaze flicker toward her, a glimmer of disapproval barely concealed. Erica held her head high, ignoring his cold glance. She had dealt with far worse in the hospital: the adrenaline-fueled emergencies, tense confrontations with families, and the occasional ungrateful patient, a rude manager at a resort. She would brush it off like dust from her shoulder. "Good morning," she greeted the concierge, a young man with a warm smile. "I'd love some recommendations for the day." "Of course, ma'am. We have a wonderful art gallery just down the road. And if you're interested, a tour of the historic district. It's absolutely charming this time of year." He pointed out various places on a map, his enthusiasm infectious. "Thank you. That sounds perfect," she replied, grateful for the friendly welcome. But just as she took the map, a pair of voices behind her caught her attention. Turning slightly, she noticed the same couple from yesterday, the impeccably dressed man and woman who had whispered harsh words when she first arrived. Today, the woman wore a pale blue dress and a string of pearls, her husband sporting a crisp linen suit. They exchanged looks as they passed, their expressions cold and dismissive. Erica felt her heart tighten but forced herself to remain calm, reminding herself she was here to enjoy her time. Pushing the encounter from her mind, Erica set out on her adventure. Her first stop was the art gallery, a hidden gem featuring local artists' work. She was captivated by a watercolor series depicting the changing seasons. The colors, bold and vibrant, brought back memories of the walks she used to take with her grandmother, who had a love for nature that she had passed down to Erica. As she moved from one piece to another, Erica felt the tension from the morning melt away. She was lost in the colors, the shapes, the stories captured in each brushstroke. This was what she had hoped for, a break from the demands of her job. and the worries of the world. This was peace. Next, Erica wandered through the historic district, admiring the quaint brick houses and old-fashioned street lamps. She stopped at a small, bustling cafe on a corner, drawn in by the rich aroma of fresh coffee. Finding a cozy table near the window, she ordered a cup of their signature blend and settled in with a book she had brought along, a novel she had been trying to finish for months. But her peaceful moment didn't last long. Midway through her coffee, Erica noticed Mr. Thompson and a group of hotel staff walking into the cafe. They didn't see her at first, but when Mr. Thompson's gaze landed on her, his lips tightened, his demeanor shifting from casual to strained. He whispered something to the staff beside him, and they, too, glanced her way, their expressions blank. Erica returned his gaze calmly, determined not to let him ruffle her. She would not be made to feel small, not here, and certainly not by someone like Mr. Thompson. Her coffee finished, Erica rose, offering a polite nod in Mr. Thompson's direction before leaving the cafe. She could feel his eyes on her as she walked out, a weight pressing down on her back, but she refused to let it dampen her spirits. The day was too beautiful, and the town too charming, to let his prejudice cast a shadow over her experience. By the time she returned to the hotel that afternoon, she felt light, her mind still buzzing with the beauty she'd seen and the quiet joy she'd found. But as she crossed the lobby, she noticed a ripple of whispers among some guests nearby. This time, they didn't bother to lower their voices. A pair of women sitting by the fireplace leaned toward each other, their eyes fixed on Erica. "Did you see her? Staying here for a week," one woman muttered, her voice carrying. "Unbelievable. I don't know how they let just anyone book here now," the other replied, her tone thick with disdain. Erica's chest tightened, the familiar sting of their words sinking in. She had fought too hard, worked too many grueling hours, to let these petty judgments get to her. She would not allow anyone to make her feel unworthy. Standing a bit taller, she walked past them without a glance, her gaze set straight ahead. Later that evening, Erica made her way to the resort's luxurious rooftop terrace, which overlooked the sprawling city lights below. The sky was painted in deep hues of purple and blue, stars just beginning to glimmer. She leaned against the railing, inhaling the crisp night air, feeling a sense of calm settle over her. Moments later, she heard a familiar voice, a slow, drawling laugh that turned her stomach. Mr. Thompson was on the other side of the terrace, conversing with a group of affluent-looking guests, his voice carrying over the quiet murmurs. She tried to ignore him, but their conversation shifted as one of the guests, a sharply dressed woman with silver-streaked hair, noticed Erica standing alone. "Is she one of ours?" the woman asked, her tone laced with curiosity and just a hint of disdain. Mr. Thompson's eyes landed on Erica, and his lips curled into a thin smile. "A unique addition, shall we say?" he replied, not even bothering to lower his voice. The guests chuckled lightly, as if Erica were a curiosity on display, rather than a paying guest with as much right to be there as any of them. Erica turned to face them, her eyes meeting Mr. Thompson's. She felt the weight of his disdain, but she refused to shrink under it. She squared her shoulders, her voice clear and steady. "Excuse me, Mr. Thompson," she began, drawing the attention of the group. "Is there a problem with my presence here?" A brief flicker of surprise crossed his face, but he quickly masked it with a smile. "Not at all, Ms. Johnson. We welcome all guests here, of course." The words were polite, but his tone was anything but. Erica could see the way he and his companions exchanged glances, amusement, and dismissal in their eyes. Keeping her voice steady, Erica continued, "I'm glad to hear that, because I intend to enjoy every moment of my stay. I've worked hard for this vacation, and I won't let anyone make me feel out of place." The group fell silent, their smug expressions fading as her words sank in. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, his composure slipping ever so slightly. "Of course, Ms. Johnson. We appreciate your patronage." With a final nod, Erica turned back to the view, ignoring their lingering stares. She had faced down far worse than them, and their narrow minds were no match for her resilience. As she looked out over the city, she allowed herself a small smile. She had stood up for herself, refused to let their prejudice rob her of her peace. In that moment, Erica felt stronger than she had in years, a quiet power radiating from within. The moon cast its soft glow over the terrace, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she felt fully, deeply at ease. The next morning, Erica decided to start her day with a peaceful walk through the hotel's lush gardens. The dew-dropped leaves sparkled in the morning sun, and she could hear the soft hum of bees weaving through clusters of flowers. It felt like a moment stolen from paradise, a world away from the fluorescent lights and sterile halls of her hospital. But as she walked along the stone path, savoring the tranquility, she noticed someone approaching. It was the silver-haired woman from the terrace the previous night. The woman wore a navy blue jacket and large sunglasses that hid most of her face, but there was no mistaking the stiff posture or the air of practiced elegance. For a fleeting moment, Erica considered slipping away before the woman noticed her, but then she stopped. Why should she shrink back? This was her vacation too, and she wasn't about to let anyone drive her from her hard-earned relaxation. "Good morning," Erica said politely as they passed. The woman paused, lifting her sunglasses slightly as her sharp blue eyes narrowed. "Ah, Miss Johnson, isn't it?" She tilted her head, her tone less a greeting and more an appraisal. "I saw you last night on the terrace." Erica nodded, holding the woman's gaze with quiet confidence. "Yes, that was me." The woman seemed to scrutinize her, as if measuring her response. "Well," she said finally, lowering her glasses, "I've noticed you around the hotel. You're not exactly the typical guest here, are you?" Erica met the woman's words with a calm smile, choosing her response carefully. "I suppose not. But I'm here to enjoy the same things everyone else is. This vacation has been a long time coming." The woman gave a small, stiff nod, and there was a flicker of something almost like respect in her eyes. "Fair enough," she said. "I appreciate directness, Miss Johnson." Then, after a pause, she extended a hand. "I'm Eleanor Montclair." Erica shook Eleanor's hand, the touch as formal as the woman herself. Eleanor Montclair, she thought, sounded like a name straight out of the social columns, a name people would remember. And Erica wondered if this was the kind of person who'd spent her life in spaces where wealth and status opened doors, while others stood outside, waiting to be allowed in. "Well, Ms. Montclair, it's nice to meet you," Erica said, unsure of what else to add. Eleanor regarded her silently for a moment before speaking again. "Tell me, Ms. Johnson, what brings you here to Moonlight Peaks? It's a rather exclusive retreat." Erica didn't flinch. She sensed Eleanor was testing her, looking for a response that might reveal insecurity. Instead, Erica gave her a sincere smile. "I've been a nurse for 10 years now," she said. "I love my work, but it's demanding. So I saved and planned for this vacation, and now, here I am, making the most of it." Eleanor's eyes seemed to soften, just for a second, before her formal mask slipped back into place. "A nurse, you say?" She cleared her throat, almost as if caught off guard. "Well, I respect that." She paused, glancing over her shoulder as if to ensure no one was listening. People often underestimate the kind of strength that job requires. Erica noticed Eleanor's shift in tone and allowed herself to relax slightly. "Thank you," she replied. "Yes, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's rewarding too. I've seen people at their lowest, and sometimes all it takes is a little compassion to make a difference." Eleanor pursed her lips, nodding slowly. "Compassion," she murmured, almost as if testing the word on her tongue. "It's not a quality people often associate with power, is it?" "No," Erica agreed, "but sometimes it's the most powerful thing of all." There was a long pause, and then Eleanor gave her a brisk nod. "Well, Ms. Johnson, I hope you find your time here worthwhile." Enjoy your day." With that, Eleanor walked away, leaving Erica standing among the roses, a faint smile lingering on her lips. She had no illusions about Eleanor's view of her. The woman was from a different world, one where status and privilege were currency. But Erica sensed something else, a hint of admiration perhaps, or at least a glimmer of understanding. The day passed quickly, with Erica exploring the hotel's amenities at her own pace. She visited the fitness center, where she took a morning yoga class, finding a peaceful rhythm among the other guests. Later, she made her way to the library, an opulent room lined with leather-bound books and framed paintings. The scent of aged paper and polished wood filled the air, and Erica allowed herself to settle into a corner with a book, savoring the quiet. But just as she was beginning to lose herself in the story, a shadow fell across her page. She looked up to find Mr. Thompson standing beside her, his expression cool. "Ms. Johnson," he greeted, his tone barely polite. "Mr. Thompson," she replied, equally composed. She felt a sense of calm as she looked up at him, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of any reaction beyond polite neutrality. "I noticed you've been making use of our facilities," he began, his voice clipped. "Yes," Erica replied, her expression neutral. "Isn't that what they're here for?" Mr. Thompson's lips thinned. "Of course, I just wanted to ensure that everything was meeting your expectations." Erica could see through his feigned courtesy. "Everything has been fine. Thank you." He seemed to hesitate, his gaze flicking toward the open book in her lap before returning to her. "I see. Well, if you need anything, do let us know." With that, he turned and walked away, but not without one last glance over his shoulder, as if to remind her that he was watching. Erica exhaled, closing her book. She would not allow him to intimidate her, but she couldn't deny the tension he brought into every space he entered. Determined to keep her mood intact, she decided it was time for a swim. The pool was located on a terrace overlooking the surrounding hills, the water sparkling under the midday sun. As Erica slipped into the water, she felt the cool embrace soothe her. She floated on her back, looking up at the cloudless sky, savoring the silence. For a moment, she was at peace, free from the silent judgments and stares, the quiet prejudice that simmered beneath the resort's polished surface. Just as she was about to close her eyes, she heard a voice from the edge of the pool. "Ms. Johnson." Erica looked up, squinting in the bright sunlight. To her surprise, it was Eleanor Montclair, standing at the pool's edge, dressed impeccably in a cream-colored pantsuit. "Do you mind if I join you for a swim?" she asked, her tone almost hesitant. Erica smiled, unsure of what to make of Eleanor's sudden interest. "Not at all." Eleanor disappeared for a moment, only to return in a one-piece swimsuit that, like everything else about her, was elegantly understated. She slipped into the water with the grace of someone accustomed to privilege, her movements smooth and deliberate. They swam in silence for a few minutes, the water a soothing balm between them, until Eleanor spoke, her voice low and contemplative. "You know," she began, "I've seen many people come and go in places like this. Most of them, well, they blend together after a while." She paused, her gaze on the water's surface. "But you stand out, Ms. Johnson." Erica wasn't sure how to respond, so she simply listened. Eleanor continued, her tone almost confessional. "I've always lived in a world where money and status dictate everything. It can be stifling, sometimes." Erica looked at Eleanor, surprised by her candor. "Why are you telling me this?" Eleanor gave a small shrug, her gaze distant. "I suppose I'm curious about what it's like to be seen for who you are, not just for what you have." Erica considered this. "It has its challenges," she replied slowly, "but it also brings freedom. There's a strength that comes from knowing who you are, from not needing validation from anyone else." Eleanor nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You're right. It's a kind of strength that's rare." She looked at Erica, her eyes thoughtful. "I can see why you didn't back down with Mr. Thompson. That man has been allowed to lord over this place for far too long. Erica's eyebrows lifted slightly in surprise. You noticed that? Oh, I notice more than people think, Eleanor replied, her smile widening. And I've been meaning to address it, but perhaps I could use an ally. She held Erica's gaze, a spark of something akin to camaraderie in her eyes. Erica met her look with a steady nod. I'd be glad to help, Ms. Montclair. They continued to swim together in companionable silence, the water lapping gently around them. In that moment, Erica felt a shift, as if a bridge had been built between two worlds that had seemed so far apart. Here, under the sun and in the cool embrace of the pool, an unexpected alliance had formed, a bond of mutual respect, born not from wealth or status, but from a shared understanding. And for the first time since arriving at the resort, Erica felt truly at home. The following morning, Erica awoke feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Her unexpected connection with Eleanor Montclair lingered in her mind, fueling her confidence as she planned her day. What had started as a simple vacation now seemed to be evolving into something much more meaningful, a chance to stand up against prejudice and perhaps, in her own way, make a change. She had not expected this, nor had she planned it, but something inside her urged her to follow this path. After a quick breakfast, Erica made her way to the hotel's library. She was flipping through a book when Eleanor appeared at her side, her presence as commanding as ever. Good morning, Miss Johnson, Eleanor greeted, her voice carrying a hint of mischief. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. Erica looked up, smiling. Good morning, Ms. Montclair. I've been thinking about it too. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. How do you feel about a bit of strategic disruption? She asked, her voice low, a glint of something almost rebellious in her eyes. Erica chuckled, curiosity piqued. I think I could be convinced. What do you have in mind? Eleanor motioned for her to follow, and they strolled through the library's richly decorated corridors. Mr. Thompson, Eleanor began, her tone crisp, has made a habit of enforcing his own brand of exclusivity, deciding who belongs and who doesn't. But we're going to make it impossible for him to ignore the fact that times are changing. Erica nodded, listening intently as Eleanor laid out her plan. She wanted to organize a social event, one that would bring together not only hotel guests, but also some of the hotel staff. The idea was to foster an environment where everyone, regardless of their role or status, would be welcome. It would be a night dedicated to celebrating people for who they were rather than where they came from or how much they had. We'll make it a charity event, Eleanor continued. A gathering for a cause people can't easily turn their noses up at. My family has long been involved in philanthropic circles, and I know exactly how to gather an audience that Mr. Thompson wouldn't dare offend. A small, amused smile crept onto Erica's face. She admired Eleanor's boldness, and the fact that she was willing to challenge her own circle was refreshing. I like it, Erica said, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. Let's make it an evening they won't forget. Over the next few days, Erica and Eleanor worked tirelessly to bring their plan to life. Eleanor reached out to her connections, inviting influential guests who valued inclusivity and progressive causes. Erica, meanwhile, spent time speaking with various hotel employees, learning their stories, and quietly spreading the word about the upcoming event. The staff members, usually treated as invisible fixtures of the hotel, responded warmly to her openness, and several eagerly volunteered to help with the preparations. Erica was surprised by how many of them shared stories of subtle discrimination they'd experienced, how Mr. Thompson had made their lives difficult if he didn't consider them up to standard. The injustices they described fueled her determination even more. Finally, the night of the event arrived. The hotel's grand ballroom was transformed, every corner adorned with arrangements of white roses and gold-trimmed linens. A soft jazz band played in the background, creating an atmosphere of elegance and warmth. Guests began arriving, mingling as they sipped champagne and admired the decor. Eleanor had pulled out all the stops, and it showed. The room was filled with prominent figures, some of whom Mr. Thompson would never have imagined would support such an event. Erica entered the ballroom in a flowing emerald green gown that Eleanor had helped her choose. She felt nervous but excited, knowing this night had the potential to reshape the hotel's culture. Just as she was scanning the room, she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Ms. Johnson," came Mr. Thompson's voice, cool and controlled. He was dressed impeccably, but his discomfort was clear as he took in the sight of Erica in the ballroom. "I must admit, I didn't expect to see you here tonight." Erica turned to him, calm and composed. "Good evening, Mr. Thompson. I believe Ms. Montclair invited all guests to attend this event," she replied, a polite smile on her lips. He blinked, taken aback by her response. "Well, yes, of course. I simply meant." He trailed off, his eyes darting around as if seeking an escape. But his discomfort grew when he realized that other guests were beginning to take note of their interaction. He forced a tight smile, nodding awkwardly before excusing himself. As Mr. Thompson retreated, Eleanor appeared at Erica's side, a satisfied look on her face. "Perfectly handled, my dear," she murmured, her eyes twinkling. "He's been uncomfortable all night, watching the staff and guests mingle. This is a side of people he's never cared to see." Eleanor led Erica over to a small group of hotel employees, many of whom Erica recognized from her conversations earlier in the week. They greeted her warmly, their initial shyness dissipating as she introduced them to other guests, creating connections that wouldn't have been possible on a regular day at the hotel. A waiter named Samuel, who had worked at the hotel for over 15 years, shared stories of his life with a group of guests who listened intently. A housekeeper named Rosa revealed her passion for painting, and one guest, a well-known art dealer, even expressed interest in seeing her work. Erica's heart swelled as she watched these interactions unfold. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter, camaraderie, and a rare sense of unity. For once, the invisible walls of status and wealth that Mr. Thompson had upheld so rigidly seemed to crumble. As the evening progressed, Eleanor stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room, tapping a glass to capture everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice firm but warm, "thank you all for joining us tonight. I wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate the wonderful people who make this hotel what it is, not only the guests, but also the staff, who work tirelessly to make our stays comfortable and memorable." A ripple of applause spread through the room, with staff members beaming at the unexpected acknowledgement. Eleanor continued, "It's easy to forget, in a place as grand as this, that everyone here has a story, a purpose, and a value beyond their role. Tonight, we celebrate that diversity, that uniqueness. Let this event be a reminder that true luxury is found in connection, in compassion, and in recognizing the worth of every individual." Her words were met with thunderous applause. Erica looked around, watching as even some of the more skeptical guests nodded in agreement. Mr. Thompson, however, was standing stiffly by the doorway, his expression unreadable. After Eleanor's speech, she and Erica made their way through the room, receiving countless thanks from both guests and staff. Erica could see how much this night meant to everyone involved, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come here seeking peace, but she had found something far more meaningful, a purpose beyond herself. Later, as the event was winding down, Erica found herself face to face with Mr. Thompson once more. His face was flushed, his polished demeanor slipping as he glanced around the room, clearly displeased. "I must say, Ms. Johnson," he said, his tone strained, "this evening has been unexpected." Erica met his gaze, her expression calm. "Sometimes change is exactly what's needed, Mr. Thompson," she replied. "The hotel can still be everything it was meant to be, but that doesn't mean it has to exclude anyone." Mr. Thompson's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly, clearly unable to argue. Without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the quiet of the hallway. Eleanor appeared beside Erica, giving her a proud smile. "Well done, Ms. Johnson," she said softly. You've made quite the impact tonight." Erica returned her smile, her heart light. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ms. Montclair." They shared a quiet moment of understanding. Two women from different worlds brought together by a shared vision. And in that moment, Erica knew that no matter what Mr. Thompson or anyone else thought, she had earned her place here, not just in the hotel, but in life, with all the dignity and resilience she had brought with her. As the night came to a close, Erica took one last look around the ballroom, savoring the warmth of the laughter, the connections that had been formed, and the unity that had emerged from this small act of defiance. She had arrived seeking rest, but she was leaving with something far greater, a renewed sense of self-worth and the knowledge that she had helped make a difference, however small, in this corner of the world. The morning after the event, Erica woke with a sense of deep contentment. She took her time getting ready, savoring each moment as she reflected on the previous night. Eleanor's speech, the laughter shared between guests and staff, and the proud faces of the hotel workers filled her mind. For the first time, she felt like she had a real purpose in being there beyond relaxation. As she made her way to the lobby for breakfast, she noticed an unusual quiet in the air. A few guests lingered near the entrance, speaking in hushed tones, and several staff members passed her, offering shy smiles and nods of gratitude. Erica felt a flicker of pride. The event had left its mark, and it was clear that many had appreciated the evening's message of unity and respect. She found Eleanor seated at a small table near the window in the dining area, a teacup poised elegantly between her fingers. She motioned Erica over, her face alight with satisfaction. "Good morning, Ms. Johnson," she greeted. "I trust you slept well after our little triumph." Erica chuckled, settling into the seat across from her. "I did. I think the night was exactly what this place needed." Eleanor inclined her head in agreement. "I've been staying at this hotel for years, but last night was the first time I felt truly at ease here. And judging by the whispers I've overheard, it seems many of the staff feel the same way." They shared a knowing smile before Eleanor continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And you'll be delighted to hear that Mr. Thompson has been fielding questions all morning. It seems some of the more influential guests have a few things to say about his rigid approach." Erica couldn't help but laugh, feeling a small thrill of satisfaction. "I can imagine. He's probably not used to being called out on his behavior." "No, indeed," Eleanor said with a sly smile. But it was long overdue. Their breakfast passed in a pleasant hum of conversation, and afterward, Erica decided to explore more of the hotel's grounds. She wandered through the gardens, soaking in the beauty of the well-tended flowers and manicured lawns. She felt a lightness in her step, a kind of joy that came from knowing she had made a difference, however small. As she walked, she noticed a familiar face from the previous night, Samuel, the waiter who had shared his story during the event. He was tending to a patch of roses, carefully pruning the stems, his expression one of peaceful concentration. She approached him, and he looked up, his face breaking into a wide smile. "Ms. Johnson," he greeted warmly, setting down his shears. "Thank you for everything you did last night. I've been working here for so long, but I've never felt recognized like that before." Erica felt a surge of warmth at his words. "I'm so glad, Samuel. You deserve to be seen, and to know how valuable you are here." He nodded, his smile fading slightly. "You know, it's not often we get to be anything more than, well, just part of the background. But last night reminded me that we're all more than our jobs. We're people with dreams and stories of our own." Erica nodded, understanding completely. "You're right, and I hope this is just the beginning. I'd like to think last night showed people that everyone here has a place." Samuel's face lit up with hope. "I believe that too, Ms. Johnson. And if there's ever another event like that, count me in. I'll help however I can." With a warm smile, Erica said goodbye to Samuel and continued on her way, her heart swelling with pride. She hadn't anticipated the ripple effects their gathering would have, but seeing Samuel's enthusiasm and gratitude only strengthened her resolve. As the day went on, Erica noticed other changes as well. Some of the guests she passed offered friendly nods or brief greetings, and the staff seemed more relaxed, their smiles less guarded. Even in the dining hall that afternoon, she overheard guests discussing the event, their voices carrying a newfound respect for the people who worked tirelessly to make their stays comfortable. But just as she was beginning to believe the changes might last, she ran into Mr. Thompson in the hallway near the ballroom. His face was drawn, his expression carefully neutral, but Erica could see the tension in his clenched jaw. "Ms. Johnson," he said curtly, nodding in her direction, "I trust you're enjoying your stay." "Yes, Mr. Thompson," Erica replied, her tone polite but firm. "Thank you for asking." He hesitated, his gaze sweeping over her with a faint hint of frustration. "I must say, your involvement with last night's event was unexpected." Erica met his gaze steadily. "I'm sure it was, but it seemed like something that was needed." Mr. Thompson's lips thinned. "I can assure you, Ms. Johnson, that we pride ourselves on maintaining a certain standard here at Moonlight Peaks. The mixing of staff and guests. It's not typically encouraged." Erica held back a sigh, though her patience was wearing thin. "With all due respect, Mr. Thompson, standards don't need to mean division. In fact, if anything, last night showed that bringing people together can create a stronger sense of community." He paused, clearly struggling to hold back his displeasure. "Be that as it may, Ms. Johnson, I hope you understand that the hotel must maintain its reputation, and that reputation includes a certain exclusivity." Erica's gaze hardened. She had held her tongue long enough. But now, faced with his blatant resistance, she knew she couldn't remain silent. "Mr. Thompson," she said calmly, "if reputation means making people feel less than, or excluding them based on preconceived ideas, then maybe that's the reputation that needs changing." He blinked, clearly unprepared for her directness. Before he could respond, however, a voice interrupted them. "Mr. Thompson," Eleanor Montclair said, striding toward them with the confidence of someone who held influence, "I think Ms. Johnson is right." He turned, his composure slipping even further at the sight of Eleanor. "Ms. Montclair," he began, his voice edged with anxiety, "I assure you, the standards of this hotel have become stale." Eleanor cut in smoothly, her gaze unyielding. "The world is changing, Mr. Thompson, and if this hotel wants to remain relevant, it would do well to change with it." Mr. Thompson's face flushed as he struggled to find a response. Eleanor didn't give him the chance. They shared a laugh, and Erica felt a sense of kinship with Samuel, a reminder that change could come from the quiet strength of people standing together. As he excused himself to tend to other guests, Erica's thoughts returned to Mr. Thompson. She hadn't seen him since Eleanor had confronted him in the hallway, and part of her wondered if he'd taken any of their words to heart. His letter of acknowledgement had been carefully crafted, but she could only hope that he would ultimately choose to foster a more inclusive environment. After breakfast, Erica took one last walk through the hotel grounds, her heart swelling with gratitude for the beautiful moments she had experienced here. The gardens were alive with birdsong, and the scent of blooming roses filled the air. She wandered down the winding paths, taking in the morning sunlight filtering through the trees, and allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Just as she was preparing to head back inside, she heard footsteps approaching. Turning, she saw Eleanor Montclair walking toward her. Dressed elegantly as always, her posture poised, but her expression softened. "Ms. Johnson," Eleanor greeted, stopping beside her. "I thought I might find you here." Erica smiled warmly. "Good morning, Ms. Montclair. I was just taking in the gardens one last time before I leave." Eleanor's face softened. "I'll miss our walks. You know, I thought you were just another guest when I first saw you here, but now I see you as a friend." The words touched Erica deeply. She had never expected to find such a connection in someone like Eleanor, but their time together had proven that real friendships could bridge any differences. "The feeling is mutual, Miss Montclair," she replied. "Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Eleanor gave a small, self-deprecating smile. "Well, you pushed me to see things in a new way. I may have grown up in a world that valued exclusivity, but I've learned that true strength comes from compassion and inclusivity, and you showed me that." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their words settling between them like a silent agreement to continue this mission, even after Erica left. As they returned to the lobby, Erica noticed Mr. Thompson standing near the front desk, speaking in low tones to the receptionist. He glanced in their direction, his face clouding slightly when he saw Erica. But to her surprise, he approached them, a measured calm in his demeanor. "Ms. Johnson," he greeted, his voice less cold than before, though a trace of tension lingered. "Ms. Montclair." "Mr. Thompson," Eleanor replied smoothly, her gaze unwavering. "I trust you are well this morning." Mr. Thompson gave a tight nod, shifting his focus back to Erica. "Ms. Johnson, I wanted to thank you for your input this week. I realize I may have been too rigid in my approach, and I've given some thought to what you and Ms. Montclair discussed. Perhaps it's time I reevaluate certain policies." Erica studied him, noting the effort it seemed to take him to admit this. She felt a flicker of sympathy. He was a man bound by years of tradition, caught in the rigid structures he'd been trained to uphold. But she also sensed that his words held a genuine intention to change, even if he struggled to express it. "I appreciate that, Mr. Thompson," she replied, her tone sincere. "And I hope you know that creating a more inclusive environment benefits everyone. This hotel can be a place where people feel valued, no matter who they are." He nodded, a hint of resignation in his eyes. "Yes, well, I suppose one must adapt to stay relevant. I'll be speaking to the staff about certain adjustments." Eleanor smiled approvingly. "That's good to hear, Mr. Thompson. Progress is often uncomfortable, but it's necessary." With a final nod, Mr. Thompson excused himself, leaving Erica and Eleanor to exchange a look of satisfaction. "You've made quite the impression, Miss Johnson," Eleanor murmured, amusement lacing her tone. "Even Mr. Thompson can't deny it." Erica chuckled, feeling a lightness in her heart. "I guess change comes in small steps. But I think this is a good start." The rest of the morning passed quickly as Erica packed her belongings, each item a reminder of the journey she had embarked on. As she zipped up her suitcase, she felt a pang of nostalgia. It was strange to feel so connected to a place she had initially felt out of place in, but Moonlight Peaks had become more than just a resort. It had been a catalyst for growth, for friendships, and for a sense of purpose she hadn't anticipated. Just as she was about to leave her room, there was a soft knock on the door. Opening it, she found the young concierge, the one who had helped her find the local art gallery on her first day. He held a small, elegantly wrapped box in his hands. "Ms. Johnson," he said, smiling shyly, "this is a gift from the staff. We just wanted to thank you for everything you did for us. You brought something special to this place." Erica took the box, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you. This means so much to me." Inside, she found a small crystal ornament shaped like a rose, the delicate petals catching the light. Attached was a note, handwritten and signed by several of the staff members, expressing their thanks and appreciation for her kindness and courage. With the gift in hand, Erica made her way to the lobby, where Eleanor was waiting to see her off. They embraced warmly, neither needing words to express the friendship that had blossomed between them. "Promise you'll come back," Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise," Erica replied. "And who knows, maybe next time I visit, this place will be a little different." Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "I think it already is." As Erica stepped outside, she took one last look at Moonlight Peaks, her heart full. She had arrived as a guest, hoping for a simple escape, but she was leaving as someone who had made a difference, however small. And as she walked away, she knew she carried with her the strength of that journey, the bonds she had formed, and the quiet power that came from standing tall in the face of prejudice. It was a journey she would never forget, and as she watched the resort fade into the distance, she knew it was only the beginning of the changes she would continue to inspire. For she had discovered, in herself and in others, the strength to make the world a kinder, more compassionate place, one small step at a time.